as an excuse. Who was going to visit him next? Had he said anything about Thanksgiving? How was he doing all alone in that house? He was a spool around which the thread of their conversations wound. Van's father didn't like phones, not even to acknowledge birthdays. In college, she could go almost an entire quarter without hearing from him. His calls, when they came, seemed random. He would want to know where a friend of his could find good sushi in Ann Arbor. Or he'd ask, "Do you remember where I put the pliers?" Were there any D batteries in the house? As if she were still there, or should be. But now he was reminding her to come home. After 28 years of stubbornness, her father was finally taking his oath of citizenship, letting go at last of his refugee status and the green permanent resident alien card. He had taken the test, handed over his fingerprints, had his background checked, the last of all his friends to do so. To celebrate, he was throwing a party in the old style, the way all of the Vietnamese families in their town used to gather in the late 70s and 80s, finding relief in their free-flowing beer and language. It would be a reunion, a remembrance of their collective flight from Vietnam and settlement in America. 1975, all over again. Van, who was born in a refugee camp 3 months after her parents arrived in the States, knew only her mother's description of the dusty barracks and tents at Pendleton and the startling cold of their first winter in Michigan. She didn't understand why her father would want to return to 1975. "It's the last hooray," he insisted when he first told her his idea for the party. "We come a long way, baby." After Van had left for college, her parents decided to live on separate floors of the house they'd had for 20 years. A 60s ranch in Wrightville, a suburb of Grand Rapids, Michigan. They'd fallen into the arrangement after yet another petty argument, which potted dendrobium at the Home and Garden Center looked the healthiest, blew up into a 2-day fight. The Luongs had always done this, scratching at each other's words as much out of habit as anything. But this time, when Thuy Luong told her husband to go sleep in the basement, like a dog, he stayed there instead of slinking back upstairs. When Van went home for winter break, she found that he had actually moved to the basement. He had shoved aside the old fold-out sofa they'd had since their first apartment in the States and set up a futon right in front of the big screen TV, a clunky first-generation model that would soon be replaced by newer and newer models, to which he'd add an elaborate sound system with speakers hidden inside wooden figurines of Vietnamese fishermen. The basement had always been his domain. Van was going on 9 when they moved into that house, and she had helped him partition off a section of the floor to create a studio for his company, Luong Inventions by Din Luong, for which he often ditched his everyday money jobs in tiling and construction. He kept his sketches tacked up on the faux wood paneling, along with photographs of himself trying out his prototypes. His most successful invention, or at least unsuccessful, was the Luong arm, a tongue-like gadget devised to help short people reach items on a high shelf. He had sold more than 100 Luong arms to various friends in the Vietnamese community, but the product had never been quite right. The mechanical grip could grab a light basket, but lost control with plates and glasses. When Van graduated from college, her father gave her a prototype as a gift, saying short girls have to take care of themselves. In law school, when Miles first came over to her apartment, he had spied the arm immediately. It lay on top of her kitchen cabinets, where Van had stored and forgotten it because she couldn't see that high up. Amused, Miles examined the Y-shaped instrument and held it like a divining rod. "Will this lead me to gold and riches?" He steered it toward her. "It didn't for my dad," Van replied. She showed Miles how it worked. Put the wrist through the Velcroed brace, hang on to the wand, and use the thumb to work the lever that opened and closed the tongs. Miles wanted to try it, aiming for a thin-necked vase in Van's kitchen cupboard. "Don't," she said. "It's the only one I have." "I've got it." He secured the grip and drew back slowly to set the vase on the counter, but it slipped from the arm.